Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone who is joining, who is listening. Welcome to this important conversation. My name is Temi Popola. Of course, you're listening to this conversation that's focused on inclusion for women and the next steps. And we're all aware that, it's all over the globe, we're celebrating the International Women's Month. It's not the day yet, but the month. So it's the Women's Month, and we're celebrating women across the globe. And we remember that we're talking about inclusion and, just forgetting about the bias that already exists and looking at the way forward. And that's why Naija has decided to put together this conversation on inclusion and the next steps. Again, my name is Temi Popola, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to host this panel discussion, Why Naija. And thank you to everyone who has joined us already. Once again, I say welcome. I'll just put a few housekeeping, on the table as we go ahead to ensure that we have a seamless conversation. Now, the first thing I'll say is please don't forget to mute your microphone rather when you're not speaking. Don't forget to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. The next thing is that you can take advantage of the chat room to put in your questions, comments, contributions when they arise. There's also the Q&A feature that helps you, just put in your questions and you get responses as we go ahead. It's important for me to mention that this is a public platform and the record of conversation is being archived. So don't forget that it's a public platform. If you need to reach out to the organizers personally, it's important for you to send your message to the admin. So you see it right on your screen. You can easily access the admin and send them private messages. If it's private, if it's public, feel free to use the chat room or the Q&A box. Again, my name is Temi Popola. I'm delighted to be here to have this important conversation as we celebrate women across the globe. Now, the thing is, I am not here alone. I'm here today with great women, amazing women who are doing amazing things in their field. And they're going to be responding to this question. Is Nigeria a safe space for women already? Is it a safe space for women already? Well, as we go into the conversation, we'll answer that. But first of all, let me just tell you who's here today. I have Funmi Abiola. She's the Head Marketing and Communications at Masila Motors. Hi, Funmi. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Funmi. We also have Ifoma Agush. She's the Marketing Manager at International Premium Spirits and Reserve Brands, Guinness, Nigeria. Hi, Ifoma.
Hi, really good to be here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. We also have Motunrayo Ayo Akwe. Motunrayo is a marketing specialist, modern workplace and security, Microsoft. Hi, Motunrayo.
Hi, Temi. Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's really great to be here. Thank you for coming. And, we have Fatima Ibrahim Obanikoro. It's great to finally put a face to the name. Nice to meet you, ma'am. Ma'am, your audio is off. I'd really like to hear what you're saying.
I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And finally, last but definitely not the least, we have Oluchi Okafor. She's the Managing Director at Multimix Academy.
Hello. Okay. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hello, Oluchi. I can't see your video yet.
Oh, it's on, no? Can you see it? Are you sure?
I like the way you say it's on, no? All right. So how was the journey traveling all the way to Zoom and being a part of this from different spaces? Hope it was good for everyone.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so I'll start with Oluchi. Now, I know we're talking about Nigeria being a safe space for women, but before we go into this conversation fully, one question that comes to mind is whether, when we talk about safe space, we're looking at whether you feel confident to be in a place without being discriminated against. Now, in Nigeria so far, have you ever experienced this discrimination just because you are female? Have you ever, been in those shoes where somebody looked down on you, a group of people looked down on you just because you are female or you were denied of opportunities. I really like to hear your stories. I have a story. I'll tell my own story last. But I mean, if there's no story there, it's fine. But if you do, I really like to hear. So Oluchi, I'll start with you.
Okay, please confirm you can see me now. Can you see me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, great. So, of course, I think maybe 9 out of 10 women have gone through this in some way, shape, or form. I have had very interesting jobs, and most of my jobs have been very, I hate to say male-oriented, but they kind of have been, because being in sales, and not just regular sales, like core sales, like alcohol sales, and recharge card sales, which is my experience. First of all, people expect that you're a man just by seeing that you're in sales. So thankfully, I have a feminine name, so that usually sets them straight before I get there. But definitely, you can tell that there is an expectation of weakness that comes with being female in certain jobs. There's also an expectation of not achieving results as well. I remember trying to get a transfer in my former place of work, and I can't forget it to this day. The person who was supposed to approve it was very reluctant. And one of the major reasons he was very reluctant was because I was a new mom and female. And so he just figured that this one is probably still going through some kind of postpartum, so I'm not in the mood to take her on my team, so to speak. So this is just one. Even in my current role, I was at an occasion recently and with my team, and then my team went to try and organize food for me, and was like, okay, please help us cook food for our MD. And then the person just goes, where is he? Then they have to now start saying, no, it's a she, So sometimes they just get titles. Yeah, so they just assume. So that is my experience with, I won't call it discrimination, just almost like people expecting worse from you because you're female.
Thank you for sharing, Ifeoma. Sorry, Oluchi, pardon me.
No.
I think I mentioned Ifeoma, and I think I will just throw to her next because the spirit is leading me to her right now. Ifeoma, I'd like to hear your own story. Do you have any story? Have you ever been looked down on because you're female? Have you experienced any of such? I'd really like to hear.
Yeah, so thank you, Temi. Definitely, given where we live and in this world generally, whether here in Nigeria or across the world, there are huge discriminations as a result of being female. And I have experienced a couple. So if I want to talk about some of the ones that I may have experienced, maybe I'll just go for the sexual kind of discrimination as a result of being female. While I was just starting off in my career, back when I was an intern, I had this furniture company that I had started working in. It was being led by Lebanese at the time. And for some reason, 1 week down the line, I was already being expected to live up to an expectation that I didn't understand where it was coming from. So he was insisting he needed to get down to keep the job. And I think one of the things that I kind of stepped to was maybe he had encountered women on the job who were usually very desperate, and maybe desperation was one of the things he had sensed from Nigerian women, I don't know. But he clearly expected that trail to continue, and I shut him down. And right there and there, he fired me. And I was very happy to drop everything, and I walked out the door. The surprising thing was, that evening, he called me back to say, I hope you're resuming tomorrow. And I said, I'm sorry. Was there a missing communication? Last I checked, I was fired. And he said, oh no, I was just testing you. No, it wasn't. I said, excuse me. That was not a test. Like, he literally expected me to get down, and I didn't. And you expect me to come back on the basis of, no, it was a joke. Of course not, it wasn't a joke. And because it wasn't the first time, he had tried passing on passes prior to them. So it wasn't a case of a joke. And I knew better not to go back. And good thing I got another intern job at the time. So really, I think it was just about standing up for what I believed in, which was right at the time, and also just standing up for the women folk to say, we're not always desperate folks. It's not a do or die affair, when it comes to the job. And if I think about recently now, having risen up the career ladder, my name is Ifeoma. I want to believe most people, or like Oluchi, where she says she has a female name that kind of helps them set them straight. I expect that my name is female enough for people to assume that I'm a woman, but maybe for my title, it should be for a man. And I get a lot of mails and proposals that says, "Yes, sir," and referring me to Mr. Ifoma, because it can't just be a woman. So yeah, clearly, those are some of the discriminations I've faced in my career, and it's pretty exciting that we're here to talk about some of these stereotypes and really, really confident today.
Thank you so much, Ifeoma. People who are joining in now are beginning to see a reason to have this conversation about whether Nigeria is a safe space for women already at this point, because it may look abstract. You may sound abstract. Is this issue of inequality really existing? Are we just making it sound good or something? When you hear stories and you hear real life stories, you begin to understand that this is happening, and not too far from us. It's happening in the city. It's happening in rural communities. It's happening all over. And I'm so glad that we have women, who have such important stories, and beyond the stories, they have so much knowledge that they will give today. So it's important for me to remind you to be in this conversation. Don't just be here, be here fully, like be present. And not just that, let other people know about this conversation that is going on. It's powered by Why Naija. It's a very important conversation. So let people know on social media that you're listening to an important conversation and they should be a part of it, because we'll move on to talk about the way forward. But first of all, let's identify the issues. I'll be throwing now to Mrs. Fatima Obanikoro, the wife to the Honorable Minister, House of Reps, Etiosa Federal Constituency. Hello, ma'am. So I'd like to hear your own story. Have you ever experienced such? Have you ever been discriminated against, sidelined simply because you're female?
Hi, hello everyone. So basically I don't remember having such an experience, but I have people around me, friends and family that have experienced such, based mostly sexual harassment, and mostly because they feel like the female gender is less superior to the male gender. So some of them don't get the jobs based on qualification. So they're like, okay, you know what? I would rather give it to this man than give it to a woman, because they see us as the weaker sex or something like that. So, but personally, I haven't really had such experience, because I have been self-employed for the most part. So yeah.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I would like to hear from Fumi Abiola. Have you ever had such experience?
Hi everyone, good afternoon. So I would like to say that I have not had this kind of experience, and I think that it also has to do with my mindset, right? Because maybe if I look back, there's certain opportunities that I did not get because I was a woman, but because in my mind, it wasn't even an option, it wasn't something I was thinking about, then I probably didn't see it like that. But I mean, I'm a woman working in the automotive industry. And I think also because of my background, so I left Nigeria when I was pretty small to a Francophone country, so to a completely different culture. And then after that, so I just tend to see myself as Fumi and not Fumi the woman or Fumi the black person or whatever. So I don't remember any discrimination. The only issues I may have had would be with my drivers, who sometimes find it easier to respect my male counterparts than to respect me, who is their employer. So yeah, that's all.
Wow, I can imagine. I mean, that is an issue. That is an issue, right? When you go out with someone, a male, and even if you're paying the bills, people just expect that it is the man, he's the one paying, he's the boss, and the lady, well, not really anything in there. Another issue there. Thank you very much. So I'll listen to Moturaya now. Hello, Moturaya.
Hi, Timmy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So I'd like to hear your own story. Do you have any story, or have you not experienced, discrimination in any way, just because you're female?
Yes, most definitely I have. And I think, again, it goes beyond just being sidelined. I have been sidelined. I have had my ideas taken to management as a man's idea. I have been harassed sexually. I've experienced a lot, and I think it's even worse for me because I have a small stature. I cut my hair. I don't typically look so old. So it's not just who is this woman, it's who is this small girl, and it's something that I have had to deal with for the most part. You can so it's something I've had to deal with for the most part of my career, and not just even at work. Generally, if I'm doing stuff for my friends, if I'm running, I volunteer a lot, and there are times I'm on projects where I'm the project lead. And I remember there was it was my friend's wedding, and I was managing it I was coordinating it for her, and this videographer comes in late. He didn't come for the meeting we had earlier. He comes in late. He sees me on the seat and walks directly to someone else entirely, because in his mind that this cannot possibly be the person I'm looking for, So it's a lot of experiences that I've had, and which is why I'm happy that this conversation is happening, because it's not enough to just say, oh, I haven't had this experience. And I'm so happy that there are people on this panel who say that they haven't experienced it personally, but they have heard of people who have experienced it, because it has to happen to you before you can talk about it, before you can have a solution to such a problem. So yes, most definitely I can't even start to explain all the different times I've experienced it, but yes, I have.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so I did promise that I was going to share my own experience. Till a few years ago, I really didn't understand. I couldn't really relate. I could empathize with people who had gone through, some sort of discrimination because they are female, but I couldn't relate personally until a few years ago. I went for a particular program and we had an election, and during the election, there were 6 males, I think 6 males or 5 males, I'm not sure, but I think 6 males and 1 female who were contesting for a program. So I was the 1 female and there were 6 males. And it was a good election. I didn't win. I was the first runner-up, but first runner-up is no position really. But I was the first runner-up. I didn't win. And then at the end of the election, it was good. To me, that is okay. You win some, you lose some. But when I got feedback from people, young educated people, I was surprised. Somebody walked up to me, more than one person walked up to me and said, I would have really liked to vote for you. I like what you said, but you know that it's the first time we're doing this, so let a man do it. I think a man should do it because it's the first time. I would have appreciated someone saying and believing and not voting for me because they don't think I am competent or they don't think I can do the work. That's understandable, right? Or for some reason, but just because you are female, just because I was female, I was surprised when I got this feedback. It was like, whoa, are you serious? Are you serious? And this was coming from people who were educated. And this was coming from people who were the ones who say no to this, say no to that. And somebody said that, more than one person said that. So I then began to see that if I could hear people like this say this, then how much more people in say rural communities, what's the situation? It's probably worse. Yeah, it's very likely to be worse. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I just wanted to start out with hearing our own personal stories before we move into just talking further about this. So I have a few questions here, and yes, please feel free to give personal examples or to give examples, when you respond to my questions. And if you have anything that you'd like to just share at the end of the session, we'll go ahead. Again, it's a good time to remind everyone that if you have questions, thank you for joining us. If you have questions, please drop them on the Q&A, just the Q&A feature rather. Just put in your questions and then we'll get to the questions. All right. So, I just stopped with Moturayo now. I think it's a good place to start again. I'd like to ask you whether you see a need for a safe space in Nigeria. Do you see a need for a safe space in Nigeria? We've all talked about the challenges, and I think this is very important to even identify if we need to move from where we are, really. So do you see a need for a safe space in Nigeria? Hi, Moturayo, are you there?
Yes, we definitely need a safe space. Yes, I can. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yes. I mean, a woman's place is everywhere that she chooses to be, and she needs to feel confident enough to be in those spaces. Women need to feel that they deserve to be in spaces that they are in at every point, whether it's at work, whether it's on the road, whether it's on the street. It's important that we start to deal with the root problems that cause women to feel unsafe everywhere or anywhere that they are. Why does a woman, for instance, need a man to walk her to the bus stop once it's 7 p.m. or once it's 6 p.m.? It's because she doesn't feel safe. It's because it's not safe, in quotes. Why do women find it difficult to speak up in the workplace? Why do women find it difficult to do certain things that they would rather do, that they would enjoy doing? It's because they don't feel safe. So definitely we need to have a complete reorientation of our mindsets regarding how we in fact, if things were the way they should be, we would be having this conversation of, do we need a safe space? Because I don't think there's a need to qualify a space as a safe space, except when there is a possibility that it can be unsafe. So unsafe it's the fact that there's all these problems. Sorry?
I said unsafe space.
Yes. So it's the fact that there can be all these issues. There's a possibility that women feel unsafe somewhere. That's why we're talking about it being safe. So definitely these are conversations that need to be had, and that need to be had very often, and not just end our conversations. They need to translate into actual action points that will be taken seriously, that will be implemented across board, not just in the workplace.
Okay. Now, before I throw to the next person, I'd just like to ask you, you say that it's a conversation that we need to have across board. And I hear you when you talk about that, this is definitely a yes. It's important to have a safe space, right? But I'm just going to ask you, particularly for some sectors, because now we're talking about the problem. We recognize there's a challenge starting from say yes with sector, and can private sector on its own, and then individuals. What can we do? There are people who are joining in who are part of major establishments, big companies, multinationals. Some people are part of little organizations, and everyone is definitely an individual. So what can we do to achieve this safe space that you speak about?
Okay, the first thing that I would say is don't be the unsafe person. Don't be the unsafe factor. Don't be the thing that makes a space or a place unsafe for anybody, especially women. So if you're a man, first of all, don't harass a woman. Don't ask her for sexual favors before you give her a job. Don't tap her on her body. Don't touch her if she doesn't want to be touched. Don't speak to her, in a manner that she doesn't want to be spoken to. Don't crack ridiculous sexist jokes. Don't relegate a woman to whatever. And the funny thing is, there are so many little ways that because this is a very deep systemic problem, right? It's a problem that has been in our society for eons, right? So there are so many ways that you think you're a progressive person, but you're doing things that are actually regressive, things that would actually allow the other person to feel unsafe. So apart from obviously not being the unsafe factor, now let's talk about, in a workplace, for instance, how do you want to make your office safer for women? It's not just about talking about it. Talking is very important because, we all can't be workers. There's so many facets to changing a systemic problem. And then there are people that will talk about it, there are people that will do the work. And then, there's you who wants to talk and walk the talk. So if you're in a company, and so first of all, you shouldn't deny a woman a role based on agenda for whatever reason. Not maternity, not she won't be able to come and meet with our stakeholders. All our stakeholders are men. All of that, I consider it. You just don't want to do it, because if someone is qualified for a role, let her have the role. Judge her based on the KPIs that you have set for the role, not based on how sexy she looks to work. There's that. There's also the fact that after we talk about this, what kind of policies are we putting in place in our companies? What kind of policies are we putting in place? There needs to be a zero tolerance for sexism in the workplace, for instance. So it's not enough that you, as the managing director, panels and says, "Oh, we need to do better." conversations like this happen, I need to do better at cracking a joke that is need to do, So it goes beyond that. Do you have policies in your office? Do you have policies that you are actively maintaining? Is there a penalty for someone who cracks sexual jokes, someone who tries to undermine a woman's work? Is also interrupt women when they speak up in a meeting. Do you say to them, you can't do it to a woman? No. Do you understand? So it's as little as today is somebody's birthday in the office. So where the women come and cut the cake. Why? The men don't know how to use knives, to cut the cake. Why does it have to be the woman that's serving the tea when there's a meeting? Even though she's on the same level as all the other men there. So it goes beyond just talking about it. It is actively checking ourselves, checking our policies, checking how well we are enforcing the kind of rules that would make, or maybe not rules, but the kind of, maybe let me say rules for lack of a better word, is the kind of rules that will force people to understand that women are not second class citizens. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Motiwaya. You did well. I mean, you dropped a lot of thought-provoking words. Hello, Mrs. Obanikoro. All right, so we're waiting for her, but we'll just move ahead, and when she comes back, she will join us again. I'd like to hear what Oluchi has to say about this. In addition to what Motiwaya said, do you have any other words, any other things, ideas you have to add to what private sector can do?
Okay, well, there should be some level of equality. There should be a lot of equality, actually, with regards to the roles and the people that they staff on certain roles. I have been to companies where I was specifically told that they do not hire women for sales. I don't want to mention anybody's name, but that happened. And we all know of such companies because they believe that you're not going to be agile enough, whatever that means. So that's one thing. And I think that even promotions and things like that should be based on merit. Unfortunately, what's happening is that everybody's trying to tick some kind of quota. Everybody's trying to feel almost like an affirmative action for women, if you would. Almost like, okay, we need to position ourselves for female opportunities. So let's try and get one woman in here. So that it's not as if we're all male. And that is such a warped way to view things, because to me, I'm thinking to myself that it's not like as if there are no qualified women for these roles. It's not like there are no qualified women that are actually able to take this on. You're just essentially saying you're going to just put a woman there because it looks good, not because there's the right thing to do, not because there's a woman that actually fits into the space. So that is one for me. Then I think offices need to be more active with work-home balance, because it's something that you see in every company handbook. Oh, our work-life balance here is fantastic. Oh, this happens. And people think that work-life balance means you're able to work from home. Those are two very separate things, very different things. They're not the same thing at all. It just means that, unfortunately, the way society is, there are certain expectations of women, especially when it comes to the family. And unfortunately, when that happens, sometimes work might need to take a backseat. We're all women. On the balancing act that it takes being a woman, whether you're married or have kids or not, it's still a balancing act in itself. Because even if you don't have kids, you have family members that depend on you. I said something on my Instagram recently about the fact that there should be a national holiday for females who are the firstborn. I'm one, and I know that anybody else agree with that is a job description on its own. So imagine having to do that work and family, and then somebody is giving you a handbook telling you we do that, we are all about it, and then your son falls ill and you need to rush into the hospital and they tell you you can't go anywhere. Doesn't make any sense. So it's not about talking about plastering it everywhere or shouting about how you are one of the 100 best places to work in Nigeria in the newly released list. It's not about all these lists. It's not about all this fake accolades. It's not this social media crap that we're trying to pull. We try to portray our companies as being the best. This month is Women's Day now. You guys know what I'm talking about. Next couple of weeks, we'll start seeing it, start flooding. They will start, these are our women. Nobody says anything about the women for weeks, but in the month of March like this, all the women will be showcased by force or by fire. I'm not saying they shouldn't showcase women. I'm just saying that we need to be about it, not just talk about it. So yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. All right, so I think the next person I'll be going to now is Ifoma, right? So they have mentioned what the individuals can do and what the private sector can do. And I would like to ask you also this question, but because of time, let me just ask you something else. You could just touch on it if there's anything in addition you'd like to add. So I'm thinking about the women, because we talk about women and we're talking a lot about career women, we're talking about women in urban societies or urban cities. How do you think we can key in women who are in communities now? So this discussion of safe space, we're talking of women in politics, women in business, women in so and so. But for women in rural areas, do you see any way that they can also, just also enjoy these privileges that we are talking about? You can just touch on what you think individuals can do. So.
Awesome. So really, really key salient points by the other panelists of safe space is the fact that it also acknowledges cultural gender norms, cultural dynamics that either promote violence or relegation of women. And when we look at that, there is also the element of religion that also plays a key role, especially when we think about the grassroots and how women are being portrayed in a regressive manner in certain religions and beliefs. So I think critical for unlocking that element of lesser inclusion and safer spaces for women will be how are we addressing religious policy. Without mentioning names, we know that there are some spaces where a woman is expected to car to the authorities within the whether it's a church or a mosque space. Women can't speak when the men are talking. All of this eventually, transcend to the norm as part of what people would expect of society. And whether you have a wife or you have a colleague, because your religion already promotes a situation where you see women car to you, you definitely start to undermine them and the opportunities for equality in the workspace or within the society. Opportunity for the public sector to also influence or what kind of policies are we putting in place. I know that we have special agencies and bodies up to the federal cabinet where we have women leader for this, women empowerment for that. We rarely would find anyone for men, but in this society where we have so many of those lineups, it's surprising how much we have not made such huge impact over the century. They're clearly in the beyond just having children that are not really cutting through to the grassroots. I think another important thing is education. We cannot overrule the importance of education and orientation when it comes to being able to eradicate regressive gender portrayal. I'm an advocate for progressive gender portrayal, especially for female. And when I think about the level of influence I've had from my workplace and my circle in just putting behind budget and a whole full campaign behind making sure that at the workplace women feel very safe. They go as far as attracting female talent by putting up family leave policies for up to 6 months. The woman can get pregnant, go on maternity leave for 6 months with full pay. I don't see where else they're doing that currently in Nigeria, but it shows you the level of progressiveness. When I just joined Guinness, it was about 16 weeks, and today is 6 months for full pay, where you're not expected to lift a finger and do any work other than take care of a baby. What that does is a level of commitment it then brings in, for the woman who's feeling very safe, very secure. She will take care of her family front adequately and still feels the need to continue on her career journey. You see a lot of women at the top today, very few women get to the top. You see at the baseline, the primary school levels, you see a lot of females. What then happens as a trip into secondary school and into university? I'll tell you what happened. They're either married off, as a result of whether cultural beliefs that you're not meant for the top, you're meant in a woman's kitchen. All of that education needs to come through such that the woman can stand for herself. Our parents can also understand that there is really a society that is willing and able to absorb these women as successful people, rather than just wife teaching or people who just do the family work. But people can actually go after their ambitions, just like the men do. And which is why we're saying it's not about equality from a gender point of view. It's about equal opportunities for both male and female. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to go to Fumi now. Hi, Fumi, are you there? Okay, so is Mrs. Obaniko? Oh, okay. Okay, so on this part of women being involved, particularly in the private sector, for example, do you have any thoughts on it? And there's a question I'd like to ask you now. You know, when we talk about private and we talk about public, do you think there could be a middle ground? Right? Do you think that there could be private-public partnerships that could drive inclusion? Do you think this is feasible?
Okay. So thank you. I'd like to start with your first question. Corporate organizations, for example, can work on their core values using respect, as one of the elements, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to talk about is how to respect each other. A woman, if employed, has the right to be there, and therefore there should be no discrimination, right? I think it's really interesting because these days I go on LinkedIn and I see a lot of women doing great things. I see a lot of women being appointed. Like right now, I'm sure this month we'll have more women appointed than ever before, right? And it's a great thing, but it's just on the surface. At the end of the day, what happens to the other women who are, not so high up there in the hierarchy? Who supports them? Who is there to defend them? Who do they go to when they have challenges? So we could have pressure groups as well. Pressure groups where, you can feel free to take your challenges to these or to this group of people. It can be a committee, share your challenges, and then they can give you the support you need. Corporate organizations can also be transparent, because at the end of the day, it's all about transparency, right? If I know what the criteria for promotion is, then there's no debate about it. When I'm due for promotion, I'm due for promotion. And so these are some of the things that corporate organizations can do to ensure that and also everybody has their chances in moving up. And then talk about the collaboration between public and private. I would say that, basically, if we come up with pressure groups where we're able to influence policies, then it goes a long way in fighting this cause. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So is Mrs. Obaniko online now? So we could just take the question we skipped already. Hello, ma'am, are you online? If she's online, she could just unmute her microphone and we just...
Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Someone distracted me. Sorry, can you take the question again?
No, I was asking whether Mrs. Obaniko... No problem. Thank you, Oluchi. I'll come to you very soon. All right, well, she's not online now. So I know that Motunrayo does some work with rural areas. Am I correct? And I'd like to actually know what you think about inclusion for people who are in rural areas. So when we talk about females, so that we're not just talking about the interests of people in urban cities, what about people in rural areas? Any thoughts on that, Motunrayo?
Yes, Timmy, thank you very much. So yes, I run an NGO that does a lot of work with riverine communities in Lagos State. And it's interesting that over the course of, we started in 2016, and since we started, it's interesting to see that even though these women are not they are not enlightened, most of them are not educated, they are so hardworking, and they are open to opportunities, possibilities. The only problem is they don't get those possibilities and opportunities rather. So if we're talking about inclusion, it's supposed to be for women at all levels, women in rural areas, women in urban areas. I think, was it Ifoma that mentioned it first, how education is so important? They need to be able to see themselves as more than what they currently are. They need to be able to visualize themselves. I was talking to someone and I was saying to that. See, teenage pregnancy is so rampant, you understand? They don't see, it's hard for them to sit down and say, oh, I'm going to become president of Nigeria, because they don't see any representation, amongst them. They don't see anyone like them who is like that, who has come out of that place, right? So I think that apart from education, another thing we can do is we women as well who are in urban areas, who have this exposure, need to pull them up. And it starts with the person who cleans your house, the person who sweeps your compound. There's so many women that you hire a woman and you're like, okay, how do you want me to pay you? And she says, give me cash so that I'll go and give my husband when I get home. My husband collects on my home every month. You have a responsibility to educate her on why she deserves to have her own money, why financial literacy and financial independence is so important if she needs to move ahead in life. It goes beyond just saying, Rara, I can't give you money that you give your husband, otherwise I won't employ you. No. How do you deal with that? Do you decide that, okay, you know what, you have to go and open an account, I will put the money in an account for you? I remember seeing a story about a lady who said that her cleaner insisted on collecting cash so that she'll give it to her husband. And what the woman did was she said, you know what I will do? I would split the money into two parts. You go and open an account at a bank. You don't need to allow your husband. No, open an account. I would give you half of the money in cash so that you can give it to your husband so it doesn't scatter your home. But I will also make sure that I put the remaining half in the bank for you every month. That is how to empower another woman who would have not gotten an opportunity for that empowerment. So apart from the government, obviously having a lot of, I really think our government is not doing enough for women. I think our government is not doing anything for women in the first place, but that's not the point, right? So women who have an insight into what it should be or how it should be for these other women, draw them, the women on your street, the women in your area, the cleaners in your office, the one that sweeps your compound, the ones that you see that you have to talk to, the ones that you meet in the market, educate them, talk to them, let them know that there are possibilities, put hand through it.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think at this point, I need to hear from the other things I would like to ask. Don't worry, if you have, I know a lot of people who have thoughts that they want to share, a lot of want to share. But first of all, let's hear from the audience. Any questions? If you have questions, please just drop them. If you have questions, please drop the questions in the chat room. And then I'll just take the, if you drop them first. I'm having some difficulty accessing the old questions, so if you could just drop it again, I'd really appreciate it. If you have questions, please drop the questions in the chat room as we go on. Thank you. Because I think it's really important to actually hear what the audience is saying and the questions that they have. So I think, Oluchi, I'll come to you now. When we look at inequalities, I know we've been able to talk about some of our personal experiences and what private sectors can do, what individuals can do. I'm really glad particularly that we talked about individuals, because sometimes people feel like, well, I'm not big. Families have been able to show us that you can do something as a person, how you treat people, how you relate with people, how you empower women on your own. And so I feel that everyone who leaves this conversation goes home with a take home, with something that can help them, whether they're in the private sector, the public sector, or they're individual entrepreneur, whatever space they are in, they can empower women. They can be a part of this. And, it's beyond just having a conversation that is abstract. It's something that is, really real to us. So Oluchi, I'd just like to ask you, when we talk about inequalities, what are some of the Trojan horses that you see, or what's the Trojan horse that you see here? So what are some of these underlying challenges that you see? I'd just like you to touch on that, and then we'll get some questions from the audience, and then we'll move on.
All right. Mentioned society norms being one of the because there are just some things. I know that it's very woke to say unlearn and learn. It's not that easy, guys. And these are things that take generations of change to achieve. Unfortunately, it's not a fight that women can fight alone. We need male participation, and that's why whenever I go on social media, and I see certain, I feel like there are distractions, because someone says something that is pointing to hating men, people automatically lump them into the group of being feminists, and these are two very different ideals. Feminism is nothing about saying that men shouldn't get what they deserve. It's just saying that women should also get what they deserve. It's all about equality. Nobody's hating on anybody, but these are some of the societal norms that I think make it a bit difficult for us to truly attain quality. So that's why I like to always say that, to each his own. Everybody needs to decide what makes them comfortable, regardless of society. I mean, there were times in the past when during Christmas, I think over the last 2 years, some women said, I can't be cooking every Christmas Day, and then by 3 p.m. I'm smelling like a Egusi and jollof rice, and I'm not even able to enjoy the day with my family, so I'm actually going to order in instead. And it was a whole uproar, and I was like, it's not your house, it's not your marriage, it's not your home. You don't get to uproar on things that don't concern you, So it's so interesting how society kind of embeds some of these ideals in us. And we actually, everybody, even women as well, we actively find ourselves buying into those biases. So it's going to take some time. I'm very excited about the generation, and I mean, there's maybe like a 2-3-year-old right now. It's called Generation Alpha. When I found that out, I was scared because I was alpha. These people are going to show us problems. So it's just going to continue to be that transition from generation to generation where we start to redefine what those norms are. And then hopefully one day, hopefully in our lifetime, we can start to see some level of true change.
I hear you say that this is not something that women can do on our own. This is not this is not women versus men. This is not it. It's women and men coming together to ensure that there's equality, to ensure that there is inclusion. Thank you very much for dropping that. I'll just look for the questions. I believe some have been shared. And it's just a reminder to us. I mean, we're celebrating International Women's Day, and the theme for this year is choose to challenge, right? And talking about this, it's actually talking about challenging stereotypes. It's talking about challenging gender bias and inequality. And this is what we're doing by having this conversation. This seemingly little conversation is going to trigger people who are here and people who hear about it to do something about it, to challenge inequality, to challenge gender bias. So I'm glad that everyone is on board. I'm glad that everyone is listening. Thank you for joining us. We are appreciative of taking out your time to be a part of this conversation, and definitely a big thank you to our panelists. But it's not time for votes of thanks yet. So still looking for your questions. If you have questions, you can drop them. But in the meantime, we need to begin to close. I would just like to hear the thoughts of each panelist, like anything that you feel we haven't mentioned that is still around this conversation, with space for women already and the way forward. So if you would just like some thoughts that have been on your heart, we'd really like to hear them. I'll start with Ifeoma.
All right, thanks, Timmy. I think one thing that I would like to call out is the role of every individual, whether male or female, in this race to accelerate female inclusion in our society. There's a huge role that we need to play, and it all starts with self-awareness. When you're aware, you tend to do things quite differently and a whole lot more deliberately. It's just to encourage everyone to be more self-aware about the fact that there's a whole lot of female discrimination and female non-inclusion going on, and everyone should be on the table to shift that narrative. And also, when I think about narrative and how this really comes through, there are a lot of stereotypes that we are all fueling one way or the other, consciously and unconsciously. If you look at the Nollywood industry, the music, the they're not really representative of not just sex tools. There is more to us than just being sex tools. So it would really be important that some of those stereotypes are nulled and dumped if you get what I mean. There's also a whole lot that we need to do for speaking up. The more we're able to share experiences, the more we're able to speak up for female inclusion and driving for equal opportunities in the workplace, in the society, in wherever we find ourselves that is a space, we'll definitely be able to cut through a whole lot more, and we'll be a whole lot more heard. Beyond just the male counterparts, everyone will eventually stand on something. We also need to be a better role model. The reason why people can wake up today and say, I want to be a Rihanna, is because she's put herself out there. This is what she stands for example. Keep more women at the top, so that people like Okonjo-Iweala, who's now inspiring a whole lot of us also, can trickle down. More people would say, I want to be the president of Nigeria tomorrow. I want to be, somebody who is indeed making great strides, not just here in Nigeria, so everywhere here and out there. Let's stand up and speak up for right. Let's be better. Let's be the generation that we want our children to enjoy. Let's start it now, because somebody fought for where we are today, and we have not really moved the needle. So we need to start for our generations. Yeah, that's for me.
Thank you so much. So, would you like to just share your thoughts? Any burning thoughts that you'd like to share?
So, negative effects to women evolving in our society. We also should look at the positive side of it, which is that women are actually empowered by some of the chores that they had to do growing up, and that gave them a sense of responsibility. And today we can see how women are able to multitask, women are able to do great things. And I believe that, in as much as our culture had a negative impact on some aspects, we also can recognize the fact that it has empowered us as women to be able to succeed in what it is we want to do. And I also want to talk about the mindset, because as I mentioned earlier, I have a different mindset because of maybe my background and the things I've had to go through, which make me see things differently. So what I want to say is that how do it's busy or through what people hear, what they listen to. And so therefore, the media has its role to play. People in marketing communications roles as well have their role to play, because we change the stories. How do we portray people in movies? How do we portray them in adverts? What do we want people to see about women? Which kind of stories are we telling about women? And this is going to influence over time the perception of women, because obviously if all you know is a woman always cooking, or a woman always, staying back to clean the house or whatever, that's what you're going to feel that you can achieve. So basically the mindset is something that we have to change through the stories that we are able to tell. And over time as well, women who are given the opportunity to access these roles should remember that there are other people looking up to them. So they have a huge responsibility, which is to succeed in what it is that they're doing, so that they can also pave a way for other people who are coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Funmi. I'd like to hear from Motunrayo.
Yeah, so for me, I'd say that I feel like the theme for the year for IWD this year is very apt, because we need to be. My own challenge would be to women to actually choose to challenge. Choose to challenge whatever it is that you feel is not right. If something shouldn't be, then you should challenge it. You have a responsibility to yourself and to other women who are coming up. It's not okay anymore to do and say, well, just no, it's not okay to say, I don't want to be the only person talk. You need to be able to speak up, even if only person speaking up. You find out that it is through your own speaking up that somebody else is empowered to speak up as well. So we need to be very deliberate about driving the change, to not let things slide. When unnecessarily, ridiculous. Let me just say that. You need to ask them what the funny thing is, like what part of the joke is actually funny, so that they know not to crack that kind of joke anymore. I mean, at the end of the day, if they don't see you as a troublesome person, and this is not me trying to instigate anyone to go and be looking for trouble. No, I'm just saying that when you stand for these things, you need to make some people uncomfortable enough to drive the change that we need to see. So if everybody is happy and all is dandy, then maybe we're not doing enough. So there's that. I also want, like what Funmi Abi said, I wanted to say that I like it so much because she talked about marketing communication. I remember when I used to be in an agency, and every time there was a strategy session and they started to talk, how does portray this woman? What woman's picture there? Why does it have to be a man? If we're trying to represent the A-level people in the socio-economic classification, why does it have to be a man? There are women who are CEOs as well. And I particularly like there's a particular seasoning brand. It uses men for their major ads. Like they use men as the lead for their ads. Yes, and I love it so much because who says it's only women that cook? It's the only women that eat. No. So whether he's doing it for himself or whether he's doing it for his wife or whether he's doing it for his children, he's representing
to portray those images, because as much as you might say, oh, it's an ad, it's not that deep. And someone is being influenced by that piece of communication. But my actual thought before that came up was actually regarding government interventions. I've seen so many times when they want to do something for women or is women-based, and they say, oh, we are donating pure water, we're donating chickens, we're donating sewing machines, and the mind bubbles. And it bubbles not because, and somebody will say, oh, they are uneducated women. Believe you me, some graduates are beneficiaries of these things. Nobody asks them, what is your study? What did you study in school? What is your interest? What would you like to do? Why can't we have programs? That's why I'm so excited about STEM programs, women in them, girls who code, all those things. I don't know the first thing about STEM, it's not my field, but it's just interesting that those are the kind of encouraging things that are happening. But it doesn't seem like government has really bought into this completely. Let's stop doing that thing where we say you're a woman, so therefore tailoring work is what suits you. Not necessarily. The woman might have other dreams that have nothing to do with the needle and the thread. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is regarding this one is something that's been biting me for a while, regarding the fact that condoms are free and sanitary pads are not. Yeah, I'm sorry that I went there, but I had to. So these are just some of the issues. We can't finish talking about it, it's plenty. But these are some of the issues. Even if it will not be free for working women like us, let it be free for the children that are just starting their periods in secondary schools. Every month, come and share. You won't kill anybody. If you're talking about sharing food to students, share that as well. Even if you don't give them what will last them the entire period, even if it's one part, give them something, and the person who can get the day of the woman who has a period control doesn't, have access to that. So yeah, those would be my thoughts. It's been a really, really great conversation, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Thank you to all the panelists.
All right, thank you. So we don't have enough time to take all of the comments and the great feedback I can see here, but I'll just read two of them. I just read two of the ones I can see right on top. I hear Ayobami say the little things count. We should start to address the sexist jokes and make corrections about them, and also other things that we sweep under the carpet due to our insensitivity. So we should start to address them. I hear another Mutunrayo say that, thank you to the panelists, interesting conversation. As Mutunrayo said, referring to her namesake, the responsibility lies with us to stand for the next woman. Let's live by that commitment. And it's the Women's Month, and globally, as we celebrate women, we know there's the hashtag Choose to Challenge, there's the hashtag IWD 2021. I know there's a post where you lift up your hand and you say you choose to challenge stereotypes, bias, and gender inequality. So what I would like us to do, everyone who has been a part of this conversation, is to take a picture, have a pose where you just lift up your hands and, strike that pose and say, choose to challenge, and then be a part of this conversation. Don't forget that when you tag, use the hashtag IWD 2021, hashtag choose to challenge as well. It would be nice for you to also tag Why Naija, because this conversation is really important, and to know that such an organization is putting this at the forefront is important. And so we can easily just find your post when you tag at Why Naija, and you also use hashtag #WhyNaija. So in addition to the hashtags that you use across social media platform, hashtag IWD 2021, hashtag choose to challenge, and with your lovely pose, we'd also like you to use hashtag #WhyNaija X Nigerian Women. I would come up on the screen shortly, hashtag #WhyNaija X Nigerian Women, in addition to the hashtag you're using. Yeah, so in addition to the global hashtag that you're using, please use the hashtag X Nigerian Challenge, so that we get to see your comments, we get to see your feedback, we see your thoughts, and we can connect with you across social media platforms. I'd like to thank you, everybody who has been a part of the conversations. Let me start by thanking the audience, those who joined in. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your feedback. I see someone has dropped another feedback already. Because of time, I won't be able to read it. I see that there's a lot of feedback here, a lot of contribution, talking about how important conversation is. Thank you for taking time to join this conversation, and thank you in advance, because you will be challenging stereotypes